order the city council meeting of the city of Saratoga Springs. Today is Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026 at 6:01 p.m. We have the entire council present, so we have a quorum. We'll go straight to our moment of reflection. I've asked Councilmember Wilson to provide that, and would you do the pledge for us, please? Thank you.
Our Father in heaven, we are so grateful to be gathered here today. We are so grateful for the chance to serve the people of Saratoga Springs, our residents, our businesses. We're so grateful for the good people in this community, and we ask for your guidance to make good and wise decisions and to promote the safety and peace of this community. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Please stand and repeat the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for doing that. We'll move right to public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, comments for subject matter not listed on the public hearing on the agenda. Time for the public input is limited to no more than 15 minutes total. Please limit individual comments to 3 minutes. Time may not be given to another commentator. Please be respectful in your comments. Please avoid repetitive comments. If you're here for public input for the public hearing, please hold your comments until that time. Is anybody here for public input? I saw that encouragement. I need you to state your name and address.
My name is Lydia Prestwich, 1041 Mustang Lane, Saratoga Springs. I have lived in Saratoga Springs most of my life, and I am an active member in the community, including serving in 4 years on the youth council. For the past year, I have also been serving as the National Teen Speak Up Ambassador for the Epilepsy Association, sharing my experiences as a person living with epilepsy and seizures for over a decade. March is Epilepsy Awareness Month, so I invite you and anyone listening to learn more. 1 in 10 people have a seizure in their lifetime. The chance of you witnessing a seizure and helping someone with epilepsy are higher than you might think. Seizure first aid training is available at www.epilepsy.com. I had a seizure at school, and my classmates knew what to do and took care of me. Unfortunately, the adults were not prepared. Please take the time to have someone, to learn how to help someone having a seizure and to learn what different types of seizures look like. There are too many to list here. Well, there are certain things I cannot do because of my epilepsy. There are so many things I can do, and I won't let it stop me from setting and reaching my goals. I want to thank the amazing first responders in our city for coming to my aid on more than one occasion. They have responded to my home when I had my first grand mal seizure, and they drove me back to my house when I had a seizure in the driveway of the fire station while jogging with my dad. And most recently in January, after 3 seizures close together, my heart stopped beating. We live near to the North Fire Station. My parents were able to get assistance within minutes, and we all appreciated their fast, incredible response. We were blessed to live in a community with a caring, professional first responders who serve every day. I invite you to wear purple on March 26th to remember those battling epilepsy. No one fights alone. Thank you, Council, for helping create a culture of support and inclusion for people with no matter what battles they are fighting. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody else here for public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment. We will go straight to reports. I'm going to save legislative report for administration. City council, is there any reports? Mark?
It's almost over.
Thank you.
We have had a number of bills that have come up. Some of them are kind of interesting. HB 33 is one that's particularly interesting. It passed really quickly, and it deals with campaign signs, and it is something that has already gotten voted and approved by both bodies. So we'll be curious to see what that is. Interestingly enough, it deals kind of with snipe signs, and it's difficult for us in how we're going to enforce that, but it could impact our ability to enforce snipe signs. The attorneys are looking at that, and hopefully we can find some good solutions on what that's going to look like. That's a very visible thing for our community because we happen to see those signs pop up all the time. And so speech is something that's protected, and the carve out for the political signs is going to be tricky for us to navigate. There's a number of signs dealing with housing, dealing with different things. Some of the bills have not made it or likely won't make it through the end of the session, but we appreciate our legislators for all of their support. They've been very attentive to us, and we very much appreciate how much support they've given us in as we've expressed our concerns. We've also had other legislators that don't represent our community but have taken the time to listen to our unique concerns with how fast we're growing and what kind of impact some of their legislation would have on our community. And we feel that has been very positive in many fronts. So we're appreciative of the support that we've received. And as always, we appreciate the League of Cities and Towns for all of their dedicated work and really looking out for community's best interests up on the Hill. And we partner with them on a lot of those things. And so we're very pleased with that. So I could go into specific bills if you have specific questions, but right now it's kind of the final week mad rush. And so things are going to move fast and furious for the next 4 days.
Thank you, Mark.
3
I'll,
days.
I'll wait for the session to end, but I will give a little bit of kudos to our local legislators. They've been very responsive to our asks and our wants. For the most part, they've been very supportive in the things we've asked them to vote yes or no on. So our Senator Baldry, and our House Rep, Leah Hansen, have been great to work with. Okay, we'll go to department reports. In your packet, council, there's department reports for Public Works, Engineering, and Finance. Are there any questions around those? Great. We'll go straight to consent items.
I move that we approve, I move that we approve the consent items, specifically with the emphasis on number 2, the appointment of Owen Jackson to North Utah Valley Animal Services Special Service District. Appreciate you being willing to serve, Owen.
Okay, we have a first from Councilmember
I'll second the
Martin,
motion
a second from Councilmember Wilson.
on both counts.
Any comments about this? Okay, Taylor,
Yes.
Barton.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Wadman.
Yes.
Davenport.
Yes.
Thank you. Consent items approved. We'll go to business items. Business item 1, award of proposal for architectural services for design and construction of the city of Saratoga Springs Fire Station. Chief. Chief and our new appointment to the North Utah Valley Animal Shelter.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for a few moments of your time. As you know, last August, we met with the council and conducted a work session where we looked at a third-party evaluation conducted on the fire and EMS services for the city, and we proposed a strategic plan to address some of the critical issues identified in that study. And tonight, we felt like it would be beneficial going into some of the business items that you have to just quickly review and highlight some of the items from that work session. So the company that we worked with, ESCI, we contracted for them to come in and identify service gaps, forecast future growth, and tell us what our current and future needs might be, and then make summary recommendations for best practices. This was a 2-year process that did a deep dive into 10 years of data. It also looked at our current facilities. They came out and did site tours and met with staff and council members. As you can imagine, some of the findings where we grew rapidly and we outpaced a lot of the forecasted growth that other studies had done for us. We doubled our workload in emergency incidents in 5 years, and they're forecasting that to occur again in the next 5. Some of those recommendations, that was a 100-page study, and I know you have access to that, but we boiled those critical issues from those recommendations down into a strategic plan that's identified the things that we could do to address those things. That strategic plan is not a policy document. That is essentially information for the council to help give us directions and kind of align what we do in the back end between the department head and the city administration who helped us build this. So it's essentially a shared vision, and then we look at it every year. It's a very dynamic document, looking for direction from the council as we go forward during our budget cycles from year to year. These are just some of the references and standards used for that. Some of the critical issues, and none of this will be a surprise for the council, but over the last 5 years, they saw about a 12% annual growth in emergency volume. And the last year, as you know, as we saw outpace this, even this study, 15% growth in that emergency call volume. Staffing challenges is our ambulances are getting a lot busier, and historically we've depended upon the ambulance staff as firefighters. And not that we're not going to continue to do that, but as those ambulances are busier, it does limit our ability on the fire, hazmat, and rescue side. Response times have gotten longer as we've gotten busier, and the city has grown in the central area. We'll show you a map of what that looks like in a moment. But currently those response times are 1031 at the 90th percentile, and our goal is closer to 520. A couple of additional items identified in that evaluation was mutual aid, is that you can see over the last 5 years, our mutual aid received has continually gone up, with our neighbors giving us 343 mutual aid assistance in 2024, and us giving them 101. And you can see how ours had kind of continued to reduce as they've added facilities and staffing for their fire and EMS services. A big reason that our mutual aid continues to go up is this bottom chart, and this is concurrent incidents. So a lot of our incidents are happening concurrently on top of one another. And you can see single incident concurrent, which means one over the top of one. So when it says single, that's actually 2 incidents occurring simultaneously in our city. And our 2 stations are handling those well, but it's anything after that to where we're typically looking for some assistance from our mutual aid partners. So our strategic goals are these, is to improve response times, meet effective and safe staffing levels, provide consistent transfer staffing from our clinics and hospitals, balance mutual aid fairly, improve ISO rating. And the ISO rating is, the council might remember, is how insurance premiums are built, specifically affecting our business insurance, our businesses, enhance administrative operations. There's about 40 objectives and goals from our strategic plan, and we've begun ticking away at those where we can. And these are some of the big ones in there. As you know, the city is considering adding a 3rd fire station, and this is how that 3rd fire station will positively impact those strategic goals. This map here on the right, this shows response times based upon distance in our city. Our north and south fire stations were historically kind of centered on our populations, and they could get to the calls in those population centers fairly quickly. As our city has grown and some of our density has grown considerably in the east portion of our city, that's where our response times have gotten a lot longer. And so the proposal would be to add a 3rd station in that east central portion of the city as presented here on this map. And then for long-term consideration is in the south end, as we see growth down there. You can see where that orange and red is that we'd like to consider at some point. And we'll continue to work from year to year on identifying when those triggers are to add potentially a 4th. But this 3rd station improves response times in the rapidly growing that central east area, reduce our dependency on mutual aid, provide operational depth, provide for current and future administrative and logistic functions, and position personnel and equipment to help reduce our ISO rating. Those are some of the goals that I think would be our objectives that would be met in our strategic plan by adding a 3rd station in this area. And I know that that is a consideration for the council. Owen is going to cover a little bit of the work that we received direction from the council last August to pursue architect and construction RFP to seek out that design help. He'll talk about that. Is there any questions on the kind of the highlights from the work session from last August?
I just had one question. When you look at the south station in the future and you've got red response time at the end of the city where there's really no population, Are we tracking response times when we respond to like the shooting range or
Yes.
Alberta? Does
So-
that go against our overall averages?
No. And so when the ESCI did the study, we were very purposeful to pull out any non-Saratoga response times.
Okay.
We also were able to separate emergent from non-emergent, and what we were looking at is only emergent. So for example, is if a unit gets called to help change batteries in a smoke detector, is that that's not included in our response time numbers.
Do you guys do that?
We don't advertise it, but yes, we want to do that, especially, we call it a non-emergent service call. If we have individuals in the city that aren't able to do that physically themselves, and we want to make sure that they're safe, and we do that. We don't advertise for it,
Okay.
but we do help with that. So.
Because mine go off at 3 a.m. So.
I'd like to emphasize just on the south end of the city, when you look at that, I mean, keep in mind when Teguayo gets built down there, and it's a ways away, but that's going to be, I think, close to 4,000 units of density that will basically take us all the way to the very southern border of the city. And so, you know, at that point, that would become a huge necessity. So we're probably a little ways away from that. And honestly, as we look at these objectives, we look at that red area to the east part of the city, and we see that there's a huge need right now for us to be able to provide services, especially in this area of the community. And it will also, when that gets built out, Kenny, do you have a slide that shows what it would look like with that station built?
It's in our GIS mapping, but it's not in the slideshow. Sorry.
So again, we could maybe present that to you in another time, but essentially, if we can build a station approximately where this is located in the community, it turns that area green, and it spills over towards the center part of the city that really pretty much, you know, pulls together the operational response for that.
And Chief, can you explain to us what types of calls, because they're not all fire, right? A lot of these are
Correct.
EMS calls.
That is correct. Is that we about 68% of our call volume right now is EMS related.
Okay, and so can you just give us an example of what that means? That's a heart attack response? That's
Yes. So
That's a
heart
seizure
attacks,
response?
seizures, that slip and falls, trauma. We include trauma related to motor vehicle accidents as medical, and you know, stroke patients are a common medical call. Febrile seizures, sepsis, allergic reactions. I believe in the ESCI study there is a document that shows how those calls break out by type, but Council Member Wilson, I'll be happy to send you a little bit more data on that if you'd like.
Yeah, and I just want to, I mean, mostly for the community, when I learned that, I was really, you know, taken, that's such important work. Reaching those people in closer time is, you know, essential for their life, so.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
Chief, correct me if I'm mistaken, but for having a long response time or one that's way outside of the norm, every minute is a potential life that may be lost. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yes, that is correct. There are standards based upon research, and the standards on the medical side are a lot, I think, better research than on the fire side. But on the medical side, every minute that passes in a cardiac arrest reduces chance of survival by 10% after 6 minutes. And so if you can factor that into those growing response times, you can actually factor in survivability. Those statistics are pretty solid. On fires double in size every minute. And so when a fire is small, as it gets bigger, it becomes exponential in its growth rate. And so both of those issues tie directly into survivability.
Would I also be correct in saying that excessive response times when it comes to fire can also affect homeowners' insurance rates in the long run?
Yes, sir, it can. And specifically, you know, ISO, we've talked a little bit about that. When they do their evaluation, they do that every 4 to 5 years. When they establish those, they look at response times. They look at things that are even outside of the fire department's kind of control. Is water systems play a big role in our ISO rating as well. But staffing they look at, and those are all factored into insurance premiums for our homeowners.
So our need is great because it affects multiple things. We're talking about lives saved or lives potentially lost if we don't act. Insurance rates that could be adversely affected if we don't act on this soon.
Correct. There's also, we talk a lot about wildland fire, but there's, I'm sure the city's aware that in small towns and cities across America, there's been pretty devastating fires related to wildfire. And what's being commonly said now is we don't have a wildland fire problem in the wildland. We have a wildfire problem in the urban areas. Is that our densities are getting a little bit closer together, which if we can't get those fires under control quickly, is it can quite easily spread to other homes. And once 2 or 3 homes, 4 homes are on fire, it just the heat that's put off puts whole neighborhoods at risk. And that's our ability to be able to suppress that is time sensitive.
Thank you.
Owen?
Mayor and Council, thank you. So Mayor, if you're okay, I'll address items 1 and 2.
That's great.
Okay, all right. So we entered into a process to collect requests for proposals for design and architect services, and then also what's called a construction manager general contractor service. So both of these, how this works is we hire the design team, the architect team, and then we also hire the essentially the general contractor and who's going to perform construction management services for the city on a project. By doing that, we found as an organization, as a city, it's actually saved us time, money, and created better outcomes for us by having both of the firms brought on at the same time. It allows them, instead of us getting down on a design concept 30% or more, and then trying to hire somebody who's going to actually build it or oversee the construction of it, there's not much they can value engineer to help us kind of reduce costs or stay within a certain budget or find some other enhancements, if you will. So through this process, we released a request for proposal February 4th. The deadline was the 23rd. Staff, we had a review committee of myself, our facilities administrator, Chief Johnson, the Battalion Chief Coombs, and Councilman Taylor. Reviewed the proposals. We narrowed that down to 4 for each service. We received 6 architectural firms and then 10 CMGC firms. They don't make it easy on you to try to differentiate on how well they could do these things, but we feel that we had a fair process and a good process for us to determine who could help us with this project. So with that, for architectural services, we are requesting tonight to get your permission to enter into contract negotiations with AJC Architects, and then also for the CMGC side with Big D Construction as well. And so with that, I could, right now we're not asking for you to approve a certain dollar amount, but at the same time, we would like to know whether you want us to bring those contracts back when completed, or I believe one of the resolutions does allow for the city manager to enter into the contract, so we would appreciate your direction on how you want us to handle that as a council. So happy to answer any of the questions you may have.
And,
Council?
and Owen, would you explain, just for the public, just real quickly, what are some of the factors you're considering? Obviously, there's price, but there's also quality, there's time. Like,
Yep.
what are you looking at in these contracts? Because I know we've talked about this, but.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, great question. So the categories we used was their overall qualifications, their key personnel that would be on the project. We certainly want them to tell us who is actually going to be working with us, not, hey, here's everybody in our firm who's really awesome with 30 plus years of experience, but you're going to get the individual with 5 years of experience that has never done this before. How they approach the project, also their previous client and project experience on similar type of projects, and then certainly their fee plays a factor into that. Part of the other things as you look at key personnel is have they had experience with similar size projects, similar type of projects. Some, fire station, for example, has certain systems for cleaning air, exhaust. For design firms, it's can they be creative in including training opportunity or training facilities within the fire station that are an enhancement to the building instead of an eyesore, for example. Other ways of how do they reduce response times from when they're in the day room or in the dormitories or in the exercise room in order for them to get the apparatus bay to respond to a call. Seconds matter, as we just discussed, and so certainly having firms that understand that is interesting as it, or as silly as it may sound, taking a left turn versus a right turn versus how many of those turns you take adds a certain, number of seconds onto the response time for the apparatus rolling out of the fire station. So having firms that can help us determine that, have experience in AJC's, their examples, they've I believe it was over 20 different fire stations throughout the state that they've been involved with the design and construction of, including several what would be considered headquarter stations that we're considering for this Station 3 for us. And then Big D, similar, they've constructed as a firm, over 10 plus, just within the last 10 years, they've had a dozen or so that they've been involved with of constructing as well. So certainly have an experienced team that we're recommending, and that's what I think differentiated these two firms over some of the other options that were available.
Thank you. We're looking for a quality project, and I know that
Yep.
that's what you're looking for as well. Thank you.
Can you lay out what are the next steps with this?
Yeah, so next steps would be for us to begin contract negotiations with them, get a contract in place. As I mentioned, for your direction, if you're okay allowing the city manager to enter into to execute those contracts, or if you want us to bring it back, we as staff are fine either way, just want your preferences. So we would engage with them, get the contracts in place. We would then, I know there's discussion on the council of placement of the station in this area. Is it over by Public Works? Is it right next to City Hall? Some of the other factors we want to look at, we would obviously, settle on which site is very critical. But while we're doing that, we can begin working on programming. So in other words, what are the needs of the actual station? It varies by community. And so along with that, we can do some of those things in the same track. Once we have that programming and the site selected, then really it starts digging into, okay, design, materials, layouts, does this work, does that work? It's very, and then what we do with the CMGC firm is at 20%, 30%, 60%, they give us an actual cost estimate of what we're proposing to build. So for us, it really helps to know, hey, that's a great idea, that's not in our budget. And so with that process, it allows us to get check-ins so that we don't design this really great facility and then realize, oh, that's way over budget or not within what we have funds for. So that's a global next steps. There's a lot of steps within each of those. But if we get started soon, anticipation of having construction documents by later this year, end of this year, construction could begin, and late 27, early 28 would be when this facility would be able to come online.
And we're going to plan and program this to be headquarters to build out,
Correct.
right? Okay. Any other questions for council?
Jeremy, these are, Big
Jeremy?
D, sorry.
It's okay. He calls me Jeremy all the time. It's okay. Not offensive. I appreciate
Hey,
it.
I have 4 sons and I go through the whole thing, so. We've worked with these, like you said, we have relationships with Big D and
Correct.
others, and they've proven themselves to be.
Yeah, so for this facility, based on some of their project changes for Big D, they were actually able to propose the exact same team that we worked with on this facility, which certainly does raise our confidence in their ability with that, as well as their ability to come in on time, under budget, which they did on this facility as well. So while we're still doing some closeout on this facility, it's anticipated, on the low end, about $500,000 that they're not going to expend on the construction side of this project. So again, the other firms were great, not to diminish them, but we just felt that this was the team that we feel. The tricky part with a fire station is having apparatus arrive at the time you need to start operating the station. We already have apparatus on order, if you will. We're in line to receive those apparatus on time. But it's also, you can't just hire about 18 to 20 firefighter or fire personnel day one and have them trained up ready to go on a fire station. So we actually have to bring that personnel on early. And if we bring them on too early, but yet the facility is delayed 2-3 months, we don't know where we're going to have those individuals work out of. We have some creative ways for us to, for the public, this is a little bit off topic, but we are looking at ways to add ambulance service over in this area of the city within the next few months. It's not the ideal setup, but it would allow us to reduce some of those times while we build this facility. But, having somebody that we know that can deliver on time and on budget is very important in this, because last thing we want is, somebody to report back that, oh, oops, we need 2 more months, and now we're trying to figure out what we do with 18 personnel on a daily basis. Well, not on a daily basis, but on a regular basis.
Chief, how many people do we need, administration aside, how many personnel do we need to staff a station?
So the ambulance staffing, the council has already approved, and we're in the process of recruiting for that ambulance, that third ambulance now.
Okay.
As Owen said, we hope to have that in service late spring, early summer, by middle of May, and in that temporary facility that we're planning at Public Works. And then the engine staffing will come when the station opens.
So how many staff that ambulance?
So when we look at staffing, we look at 3 shifts. So each seat on an ambulance, there's 2 seats. So that would take 6 people on that ambulance.
Okay. And then to round out the whole station, how many
So
more people?
between now and when the station opens, it would be an additional 16.
Total
Okay.
18 to 20, Mayor.
18 to 22, somewhere, admin separate.
We will not add any more admin staffing at this time.
No, I'm saying, for instance, chief's office, fire marshal, they'll be there. That's not in that number.
Yes, sir. The administrative offices are separate from that.
Right, yep.
We're planning for growth. We're planning to make sure that that building can meet the needs of the city long term. And also, if we have a need, that there's some accordion size to that it could delay the putting a 4 station if we have some space to grow out of that station. And one of the things we're planning for is a potential second ambulance operating out of that station. You know, a few hundred additional square feet for 2 extra bedrooms isn't much, but it gives us capacity that if some flexibility in that 4 station.
Okay, great. Council, any other questions?
Yeah, Mayor, I just wanted to comment on this process that we've been going through. I did spend 9 hours with the chief and Owen and others going through the interview process with these individuals, or these groups, their teams. And I just want to say that I think it's important to note that AJC Architects, the chief architect, his name's Heber Slavert. I'm not sure if I pronounced his last name correctly. He's got 14 stations under his belt, design and operational, and many more in the process. And he's local. Local is in, I think, Murray is where he lives. And then when it comes to Big D, you often think of other types of buildings, but they also have approximately 20 fire stations that they have built as well. So these 2 teams together would be a powerful combination, and they have the experience and they have the reputation to be able to do this job, do it well, on time, and most likely with Big D's, how they've worked for us, come in on or under budget. As long as we don't, as everything's been planned out accordingly, and we've got plenty of time right now built into this schedule to plan it out, so there should not be any substantial change orders that would come in late in the project, which are very expensive.
Okay, council, let's do this as two different business items. So the first one, again, the firm is AJC. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we award the proposal for architectural services for design and construction of the City of Saratoga Springs Fire Station and authorize staff to negotiate and enter into a contract with AJC Resolution R26-13 dated 3/3/26.
Second.
Okay, we have a first from Councilmember Wilson, a second from Councilmember Wadman. I do have a question for the council. Are you comfortable with Mark as the city manager entering into that contract, or do you want those contracts to come back?
I said that way because I'm comfortable, but,
Okay, great.
but I don't know. I don't know if the
That's
other
the motion, and I'm just putting it out there, so. So we have a first and a second. We'll take a vote. Davenport,
Yes.
Wadman,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Barton,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
That's unanimous. Again, on business item 2, the contractor is Big D. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we award the award of proposal for construction manager general contractor to Big D, their services on construction for the City of Saratoga Springs Fire Station, and authorization for staff to negotiate and enter into a contract with the selected party. Resolution R26-14 dated today.
Okay, we have a first from Councilmember Barton,
Second.
second from Councilmember Davenport. Any discussion? We'll take a vote. Barton?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
Wadman?
Yes.
Davenport?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
That is unanimous. We will go to business item 3, Canyon Hollow Development Agreement Amendment located at 1498 North Summer Village Road, ordinance 26-06, dated today. I believe we saw this 2 weeks ago.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, this was from February 3rd, so a month ago. Okay. Yeah, this is just right over here again between Tennies. So you did propose that they come back with language.
Could you pull the
Sorry.
mic a little closer?
I talk quiet
For
anyway.
people like me that have hearing aids, it's tough.
Me too. So you did propose that they've come back with the, my brain's not working. No, my brain's not working. The deed restriction, so that would be the owner occupied for the first year. So they did come back with that, provided that, and they're asking, so the two asks or the things that are changing are they're adding the owner occupied, and then they're adding just it would be extended for 2 years from date of signing. Are there any questions on that?
No, we saw this. Any questions from the council? No, I'll entertain a motion.
Well, I do have a comment. One of this came to us a couple weeks ago, and there was a discussion about it being owner occupied, and I agreed with that. I also thought that perhaps that there should be some leeway for the developer to be able to rent those if they could not sell those units right away. I think this now should be a bigger discussion for the council on, for our city, what do we want to do when it comes to owner-occupied housing versus corporate-occupied homes, single-family homes and others where they're renting those out. I'm a big believer in home ownership, but it's probably a bigger issue that we should discuss philosophically on what we'd like for our city to have, as far as, not having deed restrictions on this one and maybe not on others. So I would like to see, Mayor, that in the future, maybe we have a larger discussion in a workshop setting, if possible.
Is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
Okay, so that's direction to staff for future work session. For business item 3, are there any other discussion items? Okay, I'll entertain a motion, please.
I'll move that City Council approve the requested development agreement for the Canyon Hollow development located at 1498 North Summer Village Drive.
We have a first from Councilmember Wilson. Do we have a second? Second from Councilmember Barton. We'll take a vote. Councilmember Taylor?
Yes.
Barton?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
Wadman?
Yes.
Davenport?
Yes.
That passes unanimous. We're on a roll. Business item 4, amendments to Title 1909, Land Development Code of the City of Saratoga Springs, off-street parking requirements, ordinance 26-07, dated today. And, yeah.
Good evening, Council. So this item is pertaining to bicycle parking requirements. Just to kind of get this out of the way first, just to give you a rough idea. The numbers for this calculation come from, the general assumption is that roughly 1 to 5% of mode share is active transportation. And so the idea is taking about 1 to 5% of our car parking requirement and then making that the bicycle requirement. So where typically retail is 4 stalls per 1,000, we're going 1 space per 5,000 square feet of floor area. And then I'll get into detail a little more about short-term versus long-term. I have some slides on that. Just wanted to kind of get this out of the way so you can kind of visualize what we're talking about. And in terms of funding it, how this would be provided for any new development, it would be provided by the developer. Whereas with existing development, there is a resource through the nonprofit Bike Utah, where if we pay for the rack itself, they will come out and do the installation. So it does help soften that cost if we have developments where we feel that it would be important to focus on. And in terms of motivations, we've heard a couple requests from the Planning Commission, from the City Council, to look at a stronger multimodal network. And one of the key elements of that is that last mile. You talk about the last mile of a trip from the train station to your final destination, and the last feet is where do you leave your bike? So we actually hosted an event at City Hall. It was a Tri-City bike ride where we had a resident reach out to us, and he said, I want to show what the bike route is from the American Fork Frontrunner Station to our new City Hall. And so we had representatives from Lehigh, from American Fork, attend that as well. And ultimately, we as staff didn't participate because it was unsafe. So the point was illustrated very well. But when we actually got to City Hall, all of a sudden you can see everyone had to just lean their bikes up against the building. This was before City Hall went in. This was against the police station, sort of our temporary meeting place. But we had this realization, okay, that final step there, we need a place where people can lock up their bikes and can feel safe to leave them. This was at a soda shop recently. An employee just had to lock their bike to the tree out front because there weren't any options for them to lock up. And just to sort of highlight behavior follows investment. The city of Portland, which I'm not claiming Saratoga is going to be the next Portland, but Portland rains 150 days.
I hope not.
Certainly not the rain. Portland rains 150 days out of the year, right? You would think that's the worst possible place to bike around. But over the course of about 40 years, they invested $60 million of targeted bicycle infrastructure, and that's really transformed them into sort of a bicycle-friendly city now. They have bicycle commutership that's almost 14 times the national average. So it really does just take little tiny amounts invested in the right areas to really change that behavior. And so we drew this from best practices in the region. We looked at Eagle Mountain, Harriman, Bluffdale, Lehigh, Provo, and Park City. And Provo and Park City in particular were actually recently recognized as gold-level bicycle-friendly communities. There's only 27 of those in the country. They were recently recognized for that. So we really drew a lot from what their best practices are, just to give examples of what really is the gold standard out there, and whether or not that's what we want to adopt as a city. And then we can explore whether it's maybe putting the cart before the horse, or if we want to go ahead and be that ambitious and prepare for that sort of community. So coming back to the short-term versus long-term distinction, short-term parking is for someone who's visiting a place for less than 2 hours. You're stopping off at the coffee shop, at the store, you run a quick errand, and you just need to lock up out front. The majority of bike racks are what you'd call short-term parking. Long-term parking is a facility where you're staying for more than 2 hours. So that's an employee bikes to work, needs a place to lock up while they're on their shift, or you're going to the train station, you need to leave it there at the train station before you hop on the train. So it's short-term parking is typically considered anything less than 2 hours. Long-term is more that all-day use. We also have really clear design standards. These were drawn from Park City and Provo, where they basically said, these are the exact types that we want to allow to avoid these more ambiguous types of racks. And when I say ambiguous, it's ambiguous as to how you're supposed to use them. Do I lock my bike up sideways? Do I put it in edgewise? Where do I put it? Is it actually secure? Can you fit multiple bikes on it? So it's just saying we want to avoid these less practical solutions to make sure we're actually getting the best use out of the racks we install. The amendment also includes language around location standards. So it needs to be no more than 50 feet from the primary entrance. If it's long-term parking, it needs to be ground level and accessible, so you're not having to carry your bike up the stairs. It needs to be protected from the elements, so if you leave it out during your shift, it's not getting rained or snowed on all day. And it needs to be in highly visible, active areas so that there's not fear of theft happening. And just to give some sort of examples of just how many stalls we're talking, so I took a couple of businesses in our area. This is the building where Fantastic Sam's is in Steel Ridge. Based off of a 5,500 square foot building footprint, you would provide 2 short-term stalls and 1 long-term stall. Smith's, which is 110,000 square feet, would be 22 short-term stalls and 10 long-term stalls for employees to use.
Can I ask a quick question?
Of course.
You use Steel Ridge as an example. For a long-term spot, how do you do that when that's multi-tenant?
So There's a couple ways you could do it. One could be on a business by business basis. When you're only talking one stall, it could be as simple as a horizontal rack in a storage closet where an employee can hang it up. It
Yeah,
could
but
also
what if you're multi-tenant though?
Right. So it could also be something where the entire development is coming together and saying, okay, this is our employee long-term parking storage. You could have a fenced-off enclosed area, kind of like a carport or like a bike locker, like in, this image here in that bubble.
Yeah.
Something like that where employees are able to store it. And then for the example of a school, with 2,800 students and 100 staff, you'd be looking at 140 short-term stalls and 10 long-term. And just an example of, sort of what this actually looks like in terms of square footage. These all accommodate 10 bicycles. So you can have vertical racks where they're hanging from the walls. You can have horizontal where they're on the ground. You can have these sort of two-tiered ones where you're able to actually raise the bicycles above one another. But you can see it's not a particularly massive footprint to accommodate those 10 bicycle stalls. This is a much bigger example. This would be more if we got like a business park to come into the city where you needed 120 long-term stalls. We don't currently have anything like that in the city, but were it to come in, this is a 1,300 square foot room that's able to accommodate all of that. So again, not massive in terms of, if you had a campus this large, it would be several buildings, right? And you're looking at a fairly large room, but one room in a number of buildings to accommodate all that storage. And then, we have the actual language here, which I'm happy to go through and look at any of the specifics of that.
Thank you. Councilmember Barton.
This was well done. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. One thing that, Mayor, if you don't mind, I wasn't even this wasn't even in my radar about bicycle parking. So I'm actually not quite ready for it. I'm not sure everybody else feels about it, but I would love to table it for tonight and then have it come back to us when we've been able to have a bigger discussion with each other. I don't know if anybody else is in favor of that or what. Again, some really innovative ideas here, and it's really great. Just wasn't on my radar quite yet, and I'm not quite ready to make a decision on that.
Councilmember Wadman.
One other thing is, with these new, do we already have codes in place for bikes? Like if they're locked up on somebody's area for more than a day, can they reach out to the city and us come by and remove them?
We don't have anything like that at the moment, no.
Can we explore that too? Just
But
for,
we're not going
'cause
to remove them from private property.
Okay, but do they reach out? They don't ever reach out to the city and
Uh,
for that.
They would have to manage it similar to if somebody abandoned a car in their property.
Okay.
They'd
Yeah.
have
Oh,
to,
yeah.
Use a tow company to do
Okay.
that.
Do we have anything for our parks and stuff for that, for cities? This is off topic. We can come back to this. I can bring this up for something else. Okay, thanks.
So,
Yeah.
oh, I just have one further question. So as we're looking at this, I feel like we're kind of looking at it from the perspective of the biker or the potential user. But do we consider the fiscal impact on the developer or the building when we
That's a
consider
big
this?
concern of mine.
Yeah.
Right? Is that a consideration that as we're looking into this code, the impact that it'll have? Because one of my concerns is, if they're requiring them to put in, take space, what does that impact on their business? If it's a restaurant, if we're taking space for bikes, does that have an impact on the number
Fiscal
of tables that
impact,
they can have? Is that, in some cases, that may be the difference between staying open and closing. So that's.
Yeah, I look at it on some of the bigger scale.
Yeah.
Like if you have an office warehouse part, like up by the northwest part of the community.
Yeah.
I don't want to discount 1,300 square feet of space in someone's building. That's a lot of space that we're dedicating to bikes to be stored inside. So I
So
believe.
if it's okay, I'll make a motion.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we table business item number 4 for a future discussion.
Second.
Okay, we've got a first from Barton, a second from Davenport. Before we vote on that, what I would like to do is maybe have a couple council members who would like to work on this with staff, who can also coordinate back with council members to see where our comfort level is on some of these things, and have this come back for a future meeting, if that's okay. Do we have council members who could do that, two of them?
I'd love to. And Joel, thank you for your work here. I have commuted by bike to at least 3 separate jobs in my life, so this is something I think about a lot. I think we'll have to get some compromises here, and I'm excited to work on this.
Okay,
I'm happy to help.
Mayor, if I could, we will also be bringing back a recreation, trails and parks recreation update next fall. We've discussed putting that in the budget for next year for us to update those plans.
Okay.
Do you want to try and do this before those plans come forward, or would you like those to come in conjunction with that?
I'm comfortable with them coming back at that time. That gives time for, so we're not trying to be urgent over the next month to get this figured out. Do we have another council member who can do that and represent council?
I think Ian mentioned it.
Ian?
If
Okay.
Ian or
So
Emma-
Davenport and Wilson, and then you guys can come
And then-
back to
and
us
if they-
individually and get our opinions as you're working through code. That would
And
be
if something
great.
happens, I'm more than willing to do it as well. So if you guys can't make a meeting, no, go ahead, Eden.
So we have a first from Wilson, a second from Davenport. Let's go ahead and take the vote. Davenport,
Yes.
Wagon,
Yes.
Wilson.
Is the motion to table?
The motion's to table, yes.
Yes.
Okay, Barton?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
That is unanimous. We go to business item 5, amendments to Title 19 Development Code of the City of Saratoga Springs, Chapter 1908, Home Occupations, and 1902, Definitions, Ordinance 26-08.
So this code amendment is addressing home occupations. So we had a couple applications come to the city where essentially we break home occupations down into Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3. A Class 1 is considered very low impact, so it's less than two clients or patrons on a day, no on-premise employees, that kind of thing. Class 2 then comes to staff for administrative approval, and that's a little bit higher in intensity, so it's between 3 and 8 patrons at any given time, up to 16 per day. You can have up to 2 on-premise employees. And then a Class 3 goes to the Planning Commission for approval, and that's anything beyond that. Originally, the way the code was written, Class 1 home occupations were allowed in any type of housing. Class 2 and 3 were only allowed in single-family homes. And so we had several examples of, say, a nail salon who had 2 or 3 clients on the weekend, once or twice a week, but because they're over that 0 to 2 threshold, that's a Class 2 home occupation, but it's not a single-family home. So they live in a townhome, they live in an apartment, they can no longer have that sort of home occupation. Similarly, we had there's this language here about construction, landscaping, delivery businesses, also being a trigger for a Class 2 home occupation. So somebody wants to load their push lawnmower into their truck and go mow a couple of the neighbors' lawns and register a business license with the city for that, that's a Class 2. So if they're loading from their townhome garage, it's no longer allowed. So the main thing we're looking to change is allow Class 1, 2, and 3 home occupations in any type of home, but instead tighten up the performance standards so that we're addressing the negative impacts of home occupations regardless of where it is. So we're looking at tightening up parking plans, traffic plans, that sort of thing, whether or not a commercial vehicle is dispatched from the home, it needs to be stored on an off-street parking stall, it can't be parked on the street, so those sorts of things. So that first element, is allowing for Class 1, 2, and 3 to be in any type of home. That off-street parking must be used by non-resident employees. So if you have that up to 2 on-premise employees, they do need to be parked in the garage, in the driveway. They can't be parked on the street. And then any needs for the home occupation itself also needs to be parked off-street. Additionally, we added language around commercial equipment and vehicles so that all commercial equipment, whether it's a trailer, a bobcat, that type of thing, needs to be screened. So it needs to be either in the garage or behind a solid 6-foot fence, which is similar to the language we already had. But we separated out commercial vehicles and said, as long as it's parked off street, that's acceptable. And the reason we separated that out from the screening requirement was we realized if you're an employee in the trades and you're given your own work truck and you park it in your driveway every night, you're allowed to do that. As soon as you, the business owner, park in your driveway, because you're registering a home occupation, it now has to be screened behind a solid wall or in a garage. And so we felt that was a little bit inequitable, that once it's your business, you're discouraged from actually registering the business and running it from your own home. But as long as you're just an employee, you can park it at your house. So we wanted to separate that out and make sure we're still enforcing the off-street parking requirement, but not requiring it to be screened. And then also adding the requirement that traffic and parking plans need to demonstrate that it will not impede access to neighboring driveways, especially with this change allowing for any type of occupation in any type of home. Townhomes and apartments tend to have driveways closer together, so making sure we're not impeding access to our neighbors. And then we added stronger language for non-compliance so that our code enforcement officers can go after that and ensure that they're meeting all those standards. Yeah.
Joel, my only concern here, and I'll open it up to the council in a second, is the off-street parking. Not all commercial vehicles are created equally. There's a big difference between a locksmith who works out of a Toyota Prius and someone who's got a different job and they've got a huge commercial truck. And in our townhome neighborhoods, a lot of those are private streets. Not all are public streets, and they're even more narrow. How do we address that?
So we did actually add a gross vehicle weight rating to that commercial vehicle standard.
Okay.
So you're not getting a dump truck parked out front. You're not getting a semi truck. It kind of caps it around, I think, what a pretty standard like trades truck looks like. Like you'll have toolboxes. I think roughly a Ford F550 is about the threshold.
Yeah, I mean, 17,500 pounds that's a substantial
Yeah.
vehicle. That's bigger than your average F350. That's a lot bigger.
I think it was smaller than a box truck, but yeah, it would be definitely for a tradesperson who has their tools in their truck.
Okay, council?
So I take that to mean then, and that may just have answered my question, I just want clarification. I have a neighbor whose son works for a pest control and he drives a Ford Transit Connect. It's a small van. Their garage is full of their own personal cars, so he parks out on the street. That would be permissible on a city street?
It would be. If street parking is permitted, then it would still continue to be allowed, unless they were registering a home occupation. If it's their home office and they're dispatching from the home, they would need to register that home occupation with the city, and then it would need to be an off-street parking.
But in the same vein, though, if he was his own licensed pest control person and he had just a small Ford Transit Connect van, he would not be able to park on the street?
He would if he registered the business.
Oh, so either way, as an employee or a registered business, he could park that on the street?
As an employee, you could park your car anywhere that it's currently legal out by the city. If
But
it's
if
your home occupation, your home business,
Yeah.
and you're applying for the city, then you would need to demonstrate that it can be parked off street.
I don't see how that's equitable. If he decided to go into his, become his own pest control company, nothing changes. It's still a very small van. It's not that large truck that we're talking about, a dump truck, which I have a neighbor down the road that has an excavation business, and he doesn't park any of those vehicles there. Do you see what I'm thinking on that, how it might be inequitable for especially something that small? That's just my comment on that.
I actually thought it was the other way around. I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah, could you clarify that language?
That vehicle while you were speaking, and that one would fall within the weight limit, so they could have that at their home occupation.
So,
Off-street or
on-street parking.
We don't allow them to park on street. That's not part of the code.
Right, but we're addressing this now, so and there are a great many people that take home a vehicle from work, they're employees, and it has a logo on there, and it's small. That could be mistaken as being, a commercial vehicle and subject to this code, correct?
Those are the things that we're trying to allow for home occupations within the city, because you're correct, anybody could do that, but we're saying if it's your home business, you can't do that. And so what we're trying to change the code is to allow you to be able to do that for home businesses.
Up to 17,500 pounds.
Right.
Okay, so then that's different than what we were just told too.
That Connect van is
Right.
okay.
Yeah, I must be
We just
hearing
got a
this.
different story.
I'm hearing that differently, I'm sorry.
You can always park on the street wherever on-street parking is allowed, so that's a different topic than the home occupation permit.
Mm-hmm. So if that were commercial vehicle, just for clarification, and pardon me for being so dense.
Oh, this is good for me too.
So if my neighbor's son who works for a pest control company, he's the employee, he takes home the van and he parks it on the street, that's permissible, correct?
Right.
Okay. And now, if he decides to go into business for himself, he'd still be able to park that on the street so long as it's under the weight limit of the vehicle, weight limit that's in this code?
So the current code says if you have a business vehicle, you have to park in your garage or behind the fence. We're trying to make it more lenient.
Okay.
Park on your driveway too.
I'm, okay. But he should be able to park that on the street, there's no change.
Even
No,
if he
we're
decides to go
not
into business.
limiting who can park on the street. That's just the standard. If it's not snowing, you can park there for, a certain number of hours without having to move your vehicle. So that's a totally different code than a home occupation permit.
It
So
depends on
on-street
HOA.
parking is citywide for anybody and that's under the legal code, under the police department. So that's a different code.
If I could, I think what you're saying is correct. This is making it very clear that they can, in fact, continue to park on the street.
Even if he now decided to own his own pest code. too.
Yes. This, right now, in our current code, if they have that pest vehicle, they have to park it in the garage or behind the fence.
So the code is changing it so they can still park.
They
in the street
can
like
still
they
park
would
in
if
this,
they were an employee.
correct. So it's becoming more lenient. So I think that's kind of that point of clarification.
Sure that that's where we were headed.
Up to 17,500.
Yes.
Thank you for the clarification, I appreciate that.
No, and it's trying to be very specific that we're doing that. Now, to that end, this is really kind of the question of, are we willing to allow the other classes of businesses to operate in multifamily neighborhoods? That's really kind of the theoretical meat to this conversation. Now, with that will come some complications, and I think one of the complication, which has been mentioned a couple times, but it hasn't been clearly articulated, and that is, what about a private HOA on a private road? Well, we can't give them permission to park on that road if it's in violation of what their CCNRs or their HOA has. So this would only apply to city streets that do not have those restrictions. So even though we could draft this in the code, if that's a private street and the HOA says you may not park on that street, and I can think of a couple of HOAs where that would be a problem, we can't overlap what the HOA has set as the rule. This only applies to private or to public streets, not to private HOA maintains roads and HOA limitations and things of that nature. So it could become complicated. We cannot necessarily impact what those would be allowed to do, and we would probably have to consider those types of restrictions as we look at this in those contexts. Because again, if there's not adequate parking, it may have other residual limitations on whether this could occur in, say, a restricted parking neighborhood.
Yeah. I wanted to thank staff for bringing this. Is that okay? Okay. Thanks for bringing this. I personally think there are a lot of townhomes that have more square footage and bigger driveways than my home, which does not have a driveway as a single-family home. And so I think that allowing someone to have a nail salon or hair salon with these parking, which I think have been done very thoughtfully, I appreciate that. I'm very for it. I mean, there's homes that are literally 1,000 square feet and much bigger driveways than mine that are townhomes that would not qualify for what my home is just because it happens to have 6 more feet on the edge of it, and I'm grateful for that.
Councilman Wabben?
This is more than parking, right? Aren't we talking about business being allowed?
Yep.
So right now, a salon that has more than 2, let's say 5, they're not allowed in class 2 or 3, right? Just class 2, which is a salon.
Class 2 and 3 is not
allowed in
permitted in-
multifamily right
correct.
now.
Are
And
we,
we're-
are we changing it?
And it's crossed out,
this code.
so that's crossed out, so it's allowing that now, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, so as it's showing right in front of us here, current class 2 and 3 would fall under a different category, and you can see how this is opening it up from only single family to single and multifamily. So that addition is a substantive change to what we currently have.
Okay, because somebody that shares a wall and they have, I mean, maybe a salon isn't a big deal, but I wonder how that, because I don't, I live in a single-family home, but I was wondering what's the impact of, can we, I mean, if we do allow it, can we make sure that there's sound? I mean, we have laws on the books already, but is
So
there a way that we
we
could?
can't change their-
Multifamily homes already
building
have separate fire separation, and they have thicker drywall and other building
Yeah.
codes for separation. So that it's a concern. Really, the thing that we see most with code enforcement is parking. You know, when you get like a little dance studio or something like that, or you have a music studio. Music studio, you have parents that are just waiting in line, and you get these constant rotations, and we typically will see complaints based on, you know, whether, you know, there's cars, you know, jamming up the neighborhood streets and things of that nature. And so like dance recital and, you know, dance studios and music, you know, and a lot of neighborhoods are really good and cool with their neighbors and they don't cause problems, but other times, you know, people are very concerned that, you know, there's a car parked in front of their house and they complain about it. So
Mark, you
it's
bring up a
unique.
good point. I mean, not that I'm concerned about salon, because salons, they don't, you know, make a lot of noise, but if there is a dance studio in a basement, you know, and they share a wall, I know we have laws that, you know, say firewall and stuff, but I've lived in a multifamily home and you can still hear. So I'm just concerned about the impact to neighbors. You know, they buy a home and then they have a dance studio and then they come complain to us. Is there anything that we can do? I don't think we can legislatively, but
There's currently language in the home occupation section that it cannot impact the residential nature
Okay.
as the primary use of the home. The home occupation is ancillary and secondary to the residential use. So if it's
Okay.
impacting that, I think our non-compliance section would allow code enforcement to go after
okay,
that.
thank you.
So I, in theory, don't have a problem with this. I am having a hard time seeing the unforeseen consequences of this change. And I think we just have to monitor it over time, and it may have to be adjusted in the future. Any other comments from the council?
I just have one other question. So back to 8 commercial vehicles. That last part, no more than 1 commercial vehicle shall be permitted in connection with any home occupation. And what is the consequence of if there were multiple vehicles associated with it?
They would just need to find some place away from the home to park them. So in some instances, we have people that operate like a dump truck or like a garbage removal, and they store their commercial vehicles at an off-site lot. So it would just be something like that, where if you want to have multiple food trucks, multiple vans dispatched from your home, we would allow one commercial vehicle to do that, but the others you would need to find alternative.
How do we regulate that they just take the magnets off the side of the van? And now they've got one van with magnets and one van that's their family van.
People get cute all the time, Mayor. That's a great question. And going back, I think, to your statement earlier, I really think that the impacts of what this will be as it starts to apply. Now, we probably already have some businesses that are operating in multifamily neighborhoods, and it's, you know, if it's a low impact, people might not even notice it, and they're probably unlicensed because they couldn't get licensed anyway. So I think that there's a positive that we will be bringing people into compliance. I also think that those problems that we don't see right now, and I'll use a dance studio as an example, I think really quickly we're going to have complaints from neighbors of something like that could be impactful to that neighborhood, and we'll just have to address it because, again, the question is really the philosophical side of, do we want to give people an opportunity to make their lives better and be able to exercise their talents and have an entrepreneurial spirit, or do we want to stifle growth because we're worried about, you know, the potential micromanagement that might have to happen if people, you know, overfill their parking in their neighborhood or explode out onto their streets. But it's true with daycares today. It's true with all kinds of different things. And so preschools, it's really from a philosophical standpoint, are you comfortable making these changes? And if so, we can certainly adapt in the future as those problems become real issues.
I am absolutely philosophically agree that we should allow entrepreneurship to thrive and grow in our city. We need to be business friendly. I agree that multifamily home occupations should be allowed. I think you've done pretty well here. You've answered my questions, and I absolutely do believe that people have a right to use their property so long as it doesn't interrupt the quiet enjoyment of their neighbors. So I appreciate what you've brought to us tonight.
Councilmember Taylor, can I I'm not, I just want to close the loop on that question that you asked earlier, because I don't think it was fully answered about the commercial vehicle parked at the residence. Because you're correct that if, you know, if you just look at strictly that code, that anyone parking their business vehicle at the home would fall within the Class 2 definition.
Okay.
However, if you go back to the definition in 1902, it basically says that a home occupation is conducted within the residence, and it's incidental. It's not, well, it's not incidental. Let me look it up really quick. I've got it right here. Home occupation is, which is clearly incidental and secondary to the use of the dwelling. So somebody just driving their work home vehicle, or driving home, or driving their work vehicle home would not fall within that definition. So I can see why you're confused by that. But you have to go back to the definition of what a home occupation is. And then also, Mayor and Council, if you would consider a friendly, or an amendment to this ordinance as well. One thing I did notice is we are not actually compliant with state law when it comes to operation of a home business by a minor. So there's a state law 10-1-203 that says we can't require a permit of a home business that's operated by a minor that occurs occasionally. So basically we have to carve out that exception in our code. So if there's a minor that has a lawn care business in the summer, that would probably be occasional use. We have to carve out that exception in Title 19. We do have it in our business license regulations. We don't require a fee, but we also can't require a permit of that home-based business that's operated occasionally by a minor.
Kevin, would it be okay if in the motion that it's called out to leave it open to staff to make adjustments to meet state code?
You can just say, direct staff to make that amendment.
Okay.
In compliance with Utah Code Section 10-1-203.
Okay, any other questions from the council? If not, we'll entertain a motion, because we talked about that way longer than I thought we would.
Sorry, I move to approve, this is business item 5. Business item 5, amendment to Title 19 Land Development Code of the City of Saratoga Springs, Chapter 19-0.08, home occupations, and 19.02 definitions, Ordinance 26-08 dated today, and direct staff to comply with Section 10.1.03 of State Code.
Okay, we've got a first from Councilmember Wilson,
Second.
a second from Councilmember Barton. We'll take the vote. Taylor?
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
I'm not sure if the findings were included in the motion.
Oh, with the findings and conditions of the staff report.
We have an amended first
Second.
and an amended second. Taylor?
Yes.
Barton?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
Wadman?
Yes.
Davenport?
Yes.
That passes unanimously. Last business item is a business item 6, Trails Master Plan Amendment. We saw this last meeting. I believe we did a work session. This is just to codify, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Thanks, Joel, for being here all night.
Thanks for listening to me. So yeah, our motivations for this are similar to the bicycle parking. We hosted that Tri-City cycling event and just recognized that there are some gaps in our network and just wanted to make sure we were integrating our Trails Master Plan with the broader regional network. So we met with Lehigh, with American Fork, we've met with Eagle Mountain, looked at their trail networks and made sure we're finding those connections into their systems and also strengthen the ones in our own internal network. Additionally, just considering Saratoga Springs' demographics, the latest census report found that just under 50% of our population is under the age of 18, which means they're not driving around and parents are driving them everywhere. Having access to safe bicycle and walking infrastructure lets those kids be kids and get around safely. You're not having to run them to their friend's house. You're not having to run them to every sports practice. It's allowing families to leave their kids to explore. And just a summary of some of the direct benefits that come from a more robust multimodal network. Reduced congestion, reduced vehicle miles traveled. The highest returns of mobility and investing in a network are kind of where we are right now, where you go from a low to a moderate network density. We have some really phenomenal regional trails. and taking it to that next level is where you actually get the most bang for your buck. A study in Salt Lake found that going from that low to moderate network density saw a mode share increase from 25%, from a 25 to 900% increase in the proportion of active trips. So you really do see a pretty positive surge when you make that next level investment. You also see between 10 and 17 times less fatalities from this Salt Lake study. Some of the indirect benefits, you see reduced mortality risk by about 28%, lower BMI, less time spent in the car, less time frustrated at traffic. You see economic vitality, you see a positive impact on home values, you see higher retail rents, you see greater worker productivity. Retail sales increase when you're tied into a bicycle and walking network. In terms of dollars spent on infrastructure, jobs created are roughly twice that of when you invest in driving infrastructure. You also see lower household cost when your cost of transportation is lowered from being able to take an alternative mode of transportation. And then, of course, the environmental impacts of less particulate matter and lower CO2 emissions. So a lot of this is just updating the maps from our Trails Master Plan. This was last updated in, I believe, May 2020. We built a lot of that in the last, I guess, 6 years now. So we're updating those maps to reflect that, and then also reflecting the new proposed trails. So we have here called out in the bubble here, just updating those figures. So originally we had 37.1 miles of paved trails finished. We now have 79.4 done, which is really exciting. We've seen some more regional trails get built as we've received MAG funding for parts of the Utah Lakeshore Trail. We've seen a lot of our separated and street adjacent trails getting built. We had about 9 miles of bike lanes go in, which is also really fantastic. And we built, 7 new trailheads. So we went out and did an inventory of all those and found what amenities were provided at them, and documented what was provided. And then we also, this was the memo that we discussed at the last council, these 2 grade separated crossings that again are eligible for MAG funding, and having these sorts of items make us score higher in those MAG conversations. It ties into our multimodal network, it ties into a future park and ride, ties into trails of regional significance. So it really makes us stronger contenders for that sort of funding. And then we also have additional proposed trails. By some weird math, it turns out we have exactly 126.9 miles of paved trails again. The mix is a little bit different from last time, but we built about 70 miles of trails, and I guess we added about 70 more miles of proposed trails to that network. As we're seeing more development come in, we're seeing more trails get added. This includes a little bit of the Three Canyons trail network as well. So you have the Bonneville Shoreline Trail here in that dotted orange on the southwest corner of the city. And then about an additional 40 miles of bike lanes as well. We also had some more trailheads proposed, so we added some proposed amenities for those. Again, several of these are in the new Three Canyons development. So the Bonneville Park is a trailhead that has equestrian and bicycle trail access, and then a smaller Three Canyons trailhead, 2 in the Wander community, and then this is a map showing that trailhead distribution. So you can see we're starting to cover a pretty large portion of the city that's within a half-mile buffer. That's those orange circles of a trailhead. And then we also added some language on active transportation. We had a bicycle and pedestrian master plan that I believe was adopted in, I want to say 2016, so about a decade ago. And this Trails Master Plan came to sort of replace that document. So we wanted to make sure that some of that language made its way into this plan so that it's still being prioritized, and again, making us score highly in those MAG projects, demonstrating that we do have an emphasis on this active multimodal network. So we just added some language on that, and then a bullet point in the recommendations that just sort of summarizes that section on active transportation. Yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Okay, council, any questions?
Can you speak to a little bit more about the MAG funding and how that works with the trails?
Yeah, so MAG has a rubric that weights a number of factors. One of them is access to transit. One of them is access to trails, or promoting active transportation. And so having elements like that help you score more highly for receiving that funding. And then these projects also have to be included in adopted city master plan. So by including them in our trails master plan, that then makes us eligible to request that funding. So like the grade separated crossing up at Market Street, which would be a bridge to connect the two sides of the Jordan River Trail. That sort of thing would be eligible for MAG funding by its inclusion in our trails master plan.
Mark, what did the underpass cost us on the south end? Total, not cost us, but total.
For
The underpass down by Harbor Point, yeah.
that was a $4 million project that was fully funded by the state. We got lucky in that it was going to be a much larger match, but we applied for that during COVID. And so they ended up having the ability to put more towards, those local transportation dollars. So it was very successful in the sense that it was fully state funded.
Right, so I was just trying to make a point for Councilmember Davenport. If it's in our plan, MAG will help pay for that, and we're not on the hook for the whole thing.
That was actually an UDOT active transportation grant, so different funding source
I know,
potentially, but yeah.
But having it in the plan is,
Having it in the plan is a really good thing for us if other people can help fund that for our
Yep.
community.
I believe MAG requires like a 5 to 10% match. It's a pretty significant contribution from MAG partners when we're eligible for those.
Councilmember Wadman,
Yeah, this business, item, it does not, it says for, however, a more in-depth review and update is anticipated for the future. Is that where we'll do this, so those bike lanes, because I see a few of them in Lehigh, right? I don't remember the north-south, but, or
it'll
east-west.
come back in the fall.
Is that what? Yeah.
That'll-
We'll talk
come
about
back
that
in the
later this year.
future.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I just have some, I don't understand them all the time. So, okay, I just had some questions there, but we'll talk about it later.
Councilmember Taylor?
I didn't catch everything that Councilman Wadman said.
He was asking about grade separated bike lanes that are
Oh,
not part of
grade
this
separated.
change.
Yeah, I'm
That
kind
will
of in the
be
same,
in the fall.
in the same vein, and maybe this, if you could just speak to this, the buffered versus the protected lane, that's different than this elevated, or the difference, is that different than what Councilman Wadman was talking about?
That's correct. So grade separated is referring to overpasses and underpasses. The separated versus buffered distinction, this image here, the example on the bottom right is a buffered bike facility. So that's where you just have paint providing a buffer. And the separation is once you add an element of physical separation. It could be the rubber post, it could be concrete, or it could be a park strip, but it's adding a physical separation between bicycles and, yeah.
Excuse me.
It's been my experience when I pull my road bike out that it's scary out there. And I like the idea of a protected lane. However, it seems to me that might be problematic for street sweeping moving forward. So the buffered lane would probably be the preferred method to ensure that we keep the rocks out of the road for road bikes. Would that be a correct assessment?
There are a number of trade-offs and challenges. We've met with the UDOT Region 3 coordinator to look at what UDOT allows on their roads, and they do actually allow something like the delineator post or a concrete striping. We've met with our parks facility as well to look at the trade-offs between maintenance and snow clearance and sweeping and that sort of thing. And it's definitely a conversation. Yeah, it doesn't require the same constant road repair when you don't have heavy vehicles driving over it, but it is a little bit more challenging to get your vehicles back there to maintain and sweep. So.
That is not on our
No,
discussion.
I know. I've just asked for, because it was up here, I wanted a clarification on that. And the only other comment is I think this is great, all the additional lanes and trails that have been added. So thank you to the staff for all this great work.
I was just gonna say the same thing. Rob stole my thing. Just kidding.
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
Joel, I really appreciate, well, everything that you presented tonight, but I love the data you brought with this Trails Master Plan and how it affects cities positively, right? So thank you for that. That was huge. I think that for me, and we talk about data all the time, but that's a big part of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've talked to actually many residents who are bikers in the last six months, and I know that there was one resident who went to Planning Commission to talk about trying to get a better separated bike trail near the new high school, and I'm really grateful for this work. Connecting our city is essential, especially with so many kids and so many moms spend, this is silly, but I know moms who spend 20+ hours as a part-time job driving their kids up and down Redwood Road, and anything that we can do to make it safe for their kids to get to practice by themselves is a real win for our families.
Okay, Any other comments from the council? And if not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the city council approve the requested general plan amendment with the findings and conditions in the staff
Trails
report.
Master Plan Amendment.
Trails Master, it says the
Okay.
general plan amendment.
It's
with the-
different on our agenda than in the packet, yeah.
Am I good?
Yep, we have a first from Councilman Wadman,
Second. Oh, go ahead.
second from Davenport. We will go and take the vote. Davenport?
Yes.
Wadman?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
Barton?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
That is unanimous. Mark, do we have need for closed session?
Not tonight, Mayor. There was a topic, but it's probably better next meeting, once
Okay.
it more fully evolves.
So without objection, we are adjourned.